Right, so today I'm going to be installing a window in the garage roof. So let's have a quick look at it. Here's the window. It's a VELUX roof light, and now this is one that's designed to go into a non-habited area. So there's no insulation on it. It's very different. You can see the thing opens up like this. There's a plastic surround that's going to go into the roof, and the roof is up there that's going to go, and you can see there's one up there already. I'm going to put it next to it to give more light into the garage. One thing I've got is a tower. You can see from one of my other videos how to put up a tower. It's really important to use one because it gives you that platform right there to stand on. So if you're on the roof and you slip down, you land on the platform. You can put stuff on it, you can put your tools on it. It's really fun. For like 50 quid or something to rent it, it really isn't worth messing about trying to climb up a ladder and climb over the edge every time. So really worth having. Okay, so I'm on the inside now, and what you need to do when you get the tiles off is to build a frame the right size for the window. Now the instructions have got all that in, so you know what the sizes are, but you can see I've started out from the inside already because there's some of the beams, some of the bars here go inside. You can see I've got 2 bars there going up. They're specified in the instructions how big this frame needs to be. So you've got the width, which comes out to here, and an inner width which is actually here, so it fits just around these 2 beams that I've got. And there's another one going up there. Okay, so that's done already. So once I take the tiles off, I can find those and I can finish building the frame around them. So the first job to do is to take the glass out. I don't really lift in the glass up. It's very heavy and breakable, and what you need is a little Torx screwdriver, and it's just a few of these to do. One on the little clasp and then 2 on each side here. Okay, now we should be able to lift the window up and out. Now, I'm going to put this somewhere far away from where I'm working, certainly away from the bottom of the tower, because otherwise I'm going to drop a tile through it. So let's go and put this somewhere safe. So now we're up here at roof level, and you can see this is where the window is, and somewhere here is where the new one's going to go. This is the daunting part, where you have to start taking tiles off the roof, and you'll find tiles aren't nailed every single one. Sort of every 3 usually you find they're nailed, so you should find that if you get one you should be able to push it up. So see, that one's free, I can push it up and that will allow me to get to the nails underneath. Oh yeah, they are nailed. And then what I can do is basically unhitch them and start taking them off one at a time. Best thing is to start up at the top, because once you start at the top you release the next row down and so on, you can just peel them back. So if I climb up now, to start off with, it's going to be quite high because there's going to be a bar across the top. I'm going to put essentially a bar which takes the water away, the sloping bar. I'll show you how to do that. Basically it stops any water that gets in underneath. Normally it flows down on top of the felt. We don't want it flowing down to a gap in the window, so what we do is divert the water away and round the side, and then it won't leak so much. So let's go and start this. I mean, I'll show you on this one what we have to do. So you'll find the first one's really quite difficult to do. I'll lift these, and then you push it up, and there's the next one. And once you get one out, it starts to be easier. So this one, let's see what will happen. And there's the first tile out. Now be careful with these, if you drop them they'll smash. You will have a few spare, obviously, because you are making a hole, but you will break some as well, so beware of that. Put these on. This is another reason for having a platform. That goes on there, and now I can start feeling around, figure out where my beam is. I can feel the beam here. I've struck it quite well. This is where the beam is, so this is where the window's going in this section, so I'll need to peel back probably 2 tiles from there, so it'll be quite close to the other window. we know where it is. Let's take the tiles off. There you go, that's the first couple off. And as you see, basically the trick is you push it back, expose the tile underneath, you take the tile off. Now, you take the rest of these off. So the next step is to put the little channel in to drain the water. And what I've got here is just a piece of plumbing pipe, so just 22mm drain pipe, and I've cut it, so I've just cut a little piece out of it, and that's going to act as a little tray. So this bit here goes underneath the felt. So you cut a slot in the felt, that goes underneath, and it will then catch any water running down the felt, and it will run it off down the side. And then this can just be screwed onto the battens. Now we're back on the roof, and you can see that I brought this up, and this is where it's going to go. Now I haven't removed all the tiles, so I've got something essentially to sit on while I do this. So I've made a hole, and you can see where this is going to go. It's going to go in this gap between there and there, where I've got the extra thick, and there. It's going to be at an angle. I'm going to put it at this sort of an angle so that it will drain the water away from my window. Now I don't want it to drain that way because there's another window there. I want it to drain this way. The water flows down here, if any gets under, hits this, and then drains off to the side. So the first thing we need to do is to cut this thing to length, and then we're going to cut a hole in the felt using a straight edge. So I'll pick the place where it's going to be, and using trusty Stanley the knife, cut that. Now up here I can't hold the camera and do the cut, so I'm going to do that and then show you the hole. And here we are. So I've cut a hole with my straight edge. I've just taken this thing and popped it into the hole like that, so you can see now any water comes running down here, it overlaps onto here, and it's going to run down and then continue down here to the side of the window. I'm going to install the window in this gap below it, so I'll just put a screw in here, a screw in here. I might put a bit of silicone in the middle, but that's done. There we go. Couple of holes in the right place, and then screwing it again. There we go. That's nice and firm. And as I said, I might put a little bit of silicone underneath, but it doesn't really need it. It's at the right angle. And there we're good to go with the window. Which are the instructions, it tells you what the frame has got to look like that you build. It's given the dimensions. So in this case, I've got the smaller window, so 103/800 and 1.1 meters essentially in that hole. So all we're going to do, we've done the inside bits. So these bits, I'll point to them. These bits here on the inside are done. I showed you those earlier. Now we've got to build the frame. Now then, eventually you're going to come to a point where you find nails, and if you're really unlucky they'll be nailed at every single one. Thankfully these ones aren't. But what you do when you get to a nail is you use one of these, a nail bar, and all you can do, and the nail comes straight out. Now if you're really unlucky and all the tiles are nailed, you can still get to them. All you need to do is you lift up the tile above. I'll do it on this one where you can see. Lift up the tile above, and then you should be able to get to the nail underneath and pull it out. It's a bit of a fiddle. And once you've done that, you can then push this tile up and get to all the ones underneath it. So that's what I'm doing now. Keep the nails, and remember at which point they were nailed on, and we'll put them back in the same place that we found them. Really quite loosely nailed on, and keep those nails. I'll take the rest off. Now look at the instructions again. Everything hinges off this top bar here, and another distance from top of the bottom beam, which is this one here, and then that goes all the way up to the one that I'm after, which is going to be 1160. It tells me at the top. So that's the distance that I'm just going to install this beam first of all. So here we are, prepared this now. I've drilled a couple of holes in either end, put some screws in. Now these line up with the beams underneath that I screwed in earlier on that I showed you. And then all that's left to do is to measure, so it's from the top of that beam to the top of this beam should measure 1160, which is just about where we are. So now I'll just do up the screws and that bit's in. And here we go, the last couple. And then this one. Okay, that's in. There's the first part of the frame. So looking again at the instructions, now I've got this top beam in place. All that's left to do is to line these others. So that means in between each of these things I need a piece of wood in line with the beams that I put underneath. So we end up with piece here, piece here, piece here, all the way down, so that we end up with this frame. So underneath it's a straight solid, and then on the top it's filler pieces. Okay, so now I've got a proper cameraman, so no more waving about with the right camera. So the first thing, I'm going to start filling in these gaps. So the easy way, you put the piece of wood where it needs to go. Using a pencil, you can just mark exactly where it comes to, and then grab a set square, draw a line across. So here we are, where the mark is, take a set square and draw across. That's the bit of wood that I need. So then take a saw and cut that bit off. So that's the first piece cut. And then all we do, pop a hole in it, and then take a screw, fix it in place. So that bit's in place. This is where you need to be careful. You need an exact measurement here, 620 between there and the next one. Be careful of the next one in later on. First of all, I'm going to go down this side. Now there are two to go in, as you can see from the diagram, two to go in, and in this case, because of the measurements, they're right next to each other. So I'm going to put another one in right there, and then we'll carry on down. Oh, so I've done down the one side now. Now I'm going to do down the other side. So this time I'm going to be quite accurate. The measurement from the instruction says the gap needs to be 620. So I'm very carefully measuring 62 centimetres. Make sure this is absolutely in the right place before I anchor it. Now same thing again, we'll come down here, adding these, and we'll take the tiles off as we go. This rope, come down the top side of the frame now, it's time to start cutting out these things. So, using a 10-inch saw, very carefully we can line it up, and start the saw. And be very careful here not to cut through the felt as we go. Bit is obviously the most difficult bit, making sure that we don't cut through the felt. There we are. Okay, so we've got to the point where we now have a frame all ready for the window. It's all measured properly. Next thing to do, it's a scary part again, cut the hole. So what we need to do is cut 10 centimetres back from each side, and then we can fold this back over. So just to make sure we've got the right measurements, 10 centimetres takes me to about there. Okay, so I'm going to cut all the way around, and then we'll cut it back and fix it. So here we go. And there we go. Next thing I'm going to do is to cut back the corners. So I feather the corners, and then what I can do is fold these back. On this one, fold these back round, and then nail that in place, and it'll give us a nice hole. So let's get some nails. So I'm using these little short nails. They've got a big flat head, so they won't burst through the felt, and they're relatively short as well, so it won't take much bashing in. So let's start up at the top. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit more interesting, because now it feels like you've got a great big hole. You could always have fallen through it before. It's a bit more obvious now. You can fall right through that hole, so try not to do that. And we can then carry on all the way around and seal that in. And here we are. So there's the felt all folded back, and we now have a hole in the roof. And you can see I've got a piece of wood there, and what I'm going to do is put it across the rafters. First of all, it'll stop me falling through the hole, and secondly, I'll be able to stand on it or sit in it, and it'll help me when I'm fixing these things around the outside. And I'm just going to tape up the corners using some of this duct tape or Gorilla tape. Now it's been a bit more complicated in this case because the actual roof timbers are slightly in, so I've got, really this is about as thin as it can get and still fit the window in. So normally this will be open, so look, let's try and basically tape these now so that it's sealed in. I can put a couple of layers around. It's not going to be particularly pretty, but it should be waterproof. And there we are. And what I'll do is go around all four corners and do that. Okay, so that's the hole prepared, frames in. All we need to do now is put the window in. Okay, so as you can see, the window is now in place. It's fitted nicely into the hole, and you'll see that it's fitted by these little screws here. So these screws, and this is the bottom line where we bent over the felt. And there's one there too. And if I turn around, there's also one up here, which is an adjustable one. So these are, okay, so I'm putting the screws in. Now, see that you're going to need to be inside to do this. So if I've got a piece of wood across, I can sit on the piece of wood, make sure the piece of wood is secure, and then you can just take a standard screwdriver. And these are, again, these are Torx screws, so you get the right job. And then I'll put it in and make sure it's pressed down fully. Do that for all the screws, top and bottom, and then the windows in place. Okay, so that's the window in place, nice and firm, not going anywhere. All we need to do now is put the tiles back in and then put the top on. So first thing I'll do is put these tiles here, because what I'm going to have to do is to start cutting tiles now. And the top layer here, basically what we need to do is chamfer off these edges to make this waterproof thing sit down on them. So that's what we're going to do next. So the first tile going into place. Now first of all, you notice it doesn't sit properly. That's because in here the little lug on the tile that fits over the button, actually now these vertical ones are in the way, so we'll have to start cutting the tile. So I'm just going to mark on the tile where it's got to come off, so that whole edge needs to come off, and then the tile will sit flat. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, now we've moved to a place further away from the roof. That's because the washing's by the roof. We don't want to get dust on the washing. So here we are. This is the tile that I marked, and what I've got to do is cut off this piece here. So a grinder with a good brick cutting attachment is what you need for this. Eye protection must be worn, and then we'll give it a go. There's the first cut down there, and the other bit I'm going to cut across the top here. So I'll move it into a better place. Trying to keep yourself out of the plane of the disc as well, so always have it to the side. If it bursts, it won't hit you. So this is going to go this way. I think is going to be the best. There we are. That will now hook over as it's supposed to, and then what we need to do is to start trimming that off. So that's the other thing we're going to do, is to take some of that top off there. So in this case, really, it's across that sort of angle. So that's done now. So that will be a nice smooth angle for the that thing to go over, and then this will hook on. So we're going to put this in place. Okay, so here's the tile that we've just cut, and let's see if it fits back in the hole. So you can see the shape that we're trying to get around. So underneath there, down against there, and there we are. And that fits quite nicely. You can see we've chamfered this off, so then when I bend this round, it'll be a nice gentle curve rather than a step. What we need to do now is the same procedure. Some of these tiles will fit, some of them will need slightly cutting, and we'll go across and fill in this bottom line. So that's the first row of tiles back in, and they're all sitting nicely. So the next thing to do is to squash this down. This is like the little waterproof thing. So roughly squash it into place, and then we can take a little rubber mallet and we can knock it down into place. Yeah, and you spend a little time getting that nice and flat so that it's nice and flush to the roof. The next thing then is to put the tiles back down the side. Now I'm quite lucky with this one. We need a gap of 30 to 60 centimetres, it says, and in fact I'm round about that distance, so I don't need to cut the tiles, which is nice. I do, however, if we check here, I do need to be cutting a chunk again out of this lip, so I'll mark that and then I'll cut that, put this first one back in. And when we've got that in, what we do, see this foamy stuff, well, what we do is cut the foam into a shape so that the tile will fit nicely against it with just a little bit of pressure, stop any water or wind going underneath it. So I'll do that as well. And here we are. So cut away the foam so it's the right shape, so it's in there, rises up there, that goes into place, and that one's in place. Okay, now what I like to do is do alternate sides and slowly make my way up the roof. So let's have a look at the other side. So on the other side, not quite as lucky. This time it's right up against it. That's touching. So I'm going to need to take, as it's 30 to 60, I'm going to take about 3 centimetres the whole length of this, which is a bit of a pain, but these are the things you have to do, so we'll do that next. Okay, so I've cut the tile again. Now come to cut the foam out, and I've discovered it's much easier if you use a pair of scissors. You get a much neater line like this, and if you're using a Stanley knife like you do in the instructions, means you get a wavy horrible line. Whereas this, you see, much neater. Completely neat, but much neater than it was. So let's try the tile in now. Underneath there. And okay, needs a little bit more taken off. It's still a bit springy, but just about there. So again, cut out the groove, and then this tile slides in. The trick with these is make sure you get them tessellating right. Some go under, some go over, and it's very easy to get them the wrong way around, to get a bit muddled up. So there we are, that's in place. That's the first two done there. 2 more to do up the side, 3 more to do up that side. So let's get on with those. Okay, so I've gone all the way around the outside now, so I'm cutting the pieces out of the tiles, as I said. A bit of the edge of these ones out, very top. Chop the bottom off the tile to make it go through the gap, and these bit on here. All I've got left to do now is to replace all the tiles above, and then that's the roof done, and then put the window in. So let's put these tiles back on. Okay, so putting these back in, again, get the tessellation right. Really useful if you've got a piece of wood to stand on, so you don't have to climb all over the road. This one. There we are. Likewise across the rest. Right, so now on to the very last tile. The last one's always the most difficult. All these things by now. I said it's really easy to accidentally get the wrong bits overlapping. Final bit, bring back these tiles that we've pushed up in the first place. Slide that back down. And that's it. That's the roof back. That looks all nice and stable. And there we are. That's the tiling done. All we need to do now is put the glass back in. So, final bit, put the window back in. Do up the screws. Again, these are the Torx ones. There's one, so it's secure. More screws. My able assistant will now pass me some screws. And that just goes in there. And then the silver one. Replace the automatic razor into its little slot. Okay, and then there are just 2 more screws to go in, and it's done. And these are into plastic, so be careful not to over tighten them, or they'll strip it. And there we go, that's done. all ready to go. I can shut it on the inside. And we're all good. Right, so here we are. Window's finished. Stand back and show you. And hopefully you've seen it wasn't that difficult a job, as long as you're careful not to fall off the roof. Painstaking, do each bit at a time, be careful cutting the tiles, and it's in, and that should last now for a good few years and be nice and waterproof. So there we are. Hopefully it's inspired you to have a go yourself. So I hope that was a useful video. Thank you.